Minister, one of the ways of increasing taxes is to leave tax thresholds the way they were. And there was a threshold introduced some time ago that you could give a gift to a child of €3,000 per annum, and it wasn't assessable as part of the lifetime gift to that child in terms of inheritance or gift tax. My question is twofold. When was that threshold set, and is it intended to increase the threshold?
Thank you, Deputy, for your two questions. That threshold was set in 2003. That threshold was last changed in 2003, I should say, in Section 149 of the Finance Act of 2003. The Deputy will be aware of what the operation of it is, so I'm not going to read it out to you. It was set in 2003. I don't at this point have any plans to change it further, but I am aware of the role that it does play in supporting families in gifts that they do make from a parent to a child, but with all of the other competing demands that are there on the Exchequer at the moment, I wasn't in a position to change it in the recent budget.
But as I pointed out, not increasing threshold is actually increasing taxes, because the Minister might tell me what is the increase in the Consumer Price Index since 2003? In other words, the real value of a gift. And would the Minister not agree with me that many parents give gifts to their children at a time of crisis for their children, or a time where there are some childcare costs or child costs that were unforeseen, or when they get their own property and maybe to furnish it and so on? And it seems to me that it's an awful lot of bureaucracy if somebody gives, a parent gives 4,000 or 5,000, that they have to then start making a whole lot of tax returns for that 2,000 over a lifetime. I'm not saying the person would ever actually reach the threshold. They might never actually have a tax liability, because the gift tax threshold, I think, is €335,000, but it's all this paperwork for very little merit. And I was wondering, would you not consider increasing it to, say, a modest 5,000, taking that would probably only give you the real value of what was there in 2003.
So, Deputy Ó Cuív is correct that the non-indexation of different thresholds more often than not leads to an increase in tax revenue. You're correct. What has been the change in inflation since the last change was made in 2003? The change in inflation in the last few years alone would mean that the real impact of that threshold has now increased, given that it's been left unchanged. I can't at this point give the Deputy an indication as to what will be in next year's budget. We're still dealing with the finance bill for this year's budget, but as I said, I wasn't in a position to make a change for this year, but I do accept that because it hasn't been changed for some while, it is now covering off a larger share of any gifts that might be made at the moment from parents to their children.
Minister, would you have any idea what an increase to €5,000 would cost the Exchequer?
Yes, I would. An increase to €5,000 would have...
To 5,000, no. To 5,000. An increase
to 5,000 would have an approximate cost of €1.1 million. 1.1 million.
And if you don't mind me, since I asked a very short question, can you just outline, because this is just going to ordinary people giving a gift, because lots of parents now are supporting children. Could you give me an outline just of what is the total tax take of the state? And therefore we'll do a little sum in our head then as to how much 1.1 million would be out of the 60 or 70 or 80 billion income and revenue that you're taking in. So you might give me, what is the tax take of the state?
I gave a short answer to your first question, and I'll give a short answer to the second one as well. Of course, it's a very, very low share of the total amount of tax that we take in. I accept it hasn't been changed for some while, and I thank you for bringing it to my attention.